Hello, this is Thomas. My pronouns are he and him. Welcome to the 24th podcast with Conversations with Thomas. I appreciate you being here. I want to invite you to journey with me today as I share what I have learned by connecting my head to my heart. I call it the 18-inch journey. I'll share some tips to help you master the connection, or if it's a beginning point for you, some tips to perhaps kickstart this part of your path. The 18-inch journey from the head to your heart is perhaps the biggest journey you can make. I spent much of my life chasing my tail, trying to figure out who I was and what I wanted from love. My head, embroiled in fear, screamed out not to come out. My heart gently counseled me with whispers that I'm loved and all would be okay. And yet I allowed my head, that fear, to run my life for 29 years before trusting my heart. The lengths I went to, the unnecessary lengths to try to understand my calling, by often indulging in distractions that were not beneficial to helping me become who I truly wanted to be, they were all moments of me being disconnected from my head and my heart. So there was no semblance, no sense of somehow making a connection between my head and my heart. When I shifted my focus from listening to the noise in my head, which typically is fear, to connecting with my heart's intuition, self-love, I was able to begin the journey of getting in touch with my purpose and love. One was to come out, and of course the next was to trust the new connection between my head and my heart. It was the beginning of a really wonderful relationship where I wouldn't necessarily have to spend all my time having the head run the show or all the time having my heart run the show. It was an opportunity to have both of them be able to run the show. I gently giggle now, realizing my real spiritual journey to purpose and fulfillment was only 18 inches long. Life can be all about timing, huh? One of my heroes is Albert Einstein. And believe it or not, it is not for his pure intellect. It is for his deep wisdom, which began with his insatiable curiosity. It is so interesting that Einstein is talked about for his connection to his theory of relativity. But few talk about his understanding of the relationship between the head and the heart. Einstein believed that the main engine of our being is actually our heart. It surprised me when I discovered that. This is where our love, our curiosity, creativity, courage, and compassion reside. They reside in our hearts. He believed that the brain was to be in service to the heart and not that the brain was the be everything to our existence nor our success. The ability to integrate these longest 18 inches known to humanity between the head and the heart is the formula for all that we wish to accomplish. All that we wish to accomplish that's actually in alignment with our purpose. And although I'm probably preaching to the choir here, the heart is actually curious and creative. The brain helps us with clear sight, strategic thinking, and the steps to take on the path forward that arises from our heart. In this time of immense possibility, how can you tap into what your heart is whispering and longing to have expressed in your world? I'd mentioned creativity, courage, curiosity, and compassion are the fundamental pillars for sustainable success as this world of ours continues to evolve. All four of these pillars actually originate, you guessed it, in the heart. Once we connect deeply there through reflection, self-awareness, self-love, love of others, and love for the purpose that we are desiring to bring into the world, then the brain can do its work masterfully in supporting the vision of the future. Otherwise, we're only kind of living half the story. And for clarity, this notion of the 18-inch journey is actually not for the faint of heart, pardon the pun. It can be tough work. It sure as F was for me. And some of you may know that I am a certified coach with close to 20 years experience now, supporting clients in making all kinds of life choices. Sometimes those choices were met with ambivalence because my clients' heads pulled them in one direction while their beautiful hearts tugged hard another way. Many clients shared that it was uncomfortable to have two sides opened wide with possibilities, allowing themselves to imagine outcomes. And that imagination or the imagining of those outcomes for themselves created an awful lot of it, bred vulnerability, if you will. And many of my clients felt really scared. And I'd suggest when it appeared there were the same number of pros and cons in a situation, that some clients do the logical thing when they were unsure. I would ask them to, or suggest that they write kind of a pro and con list, review it, and then do something a little illogical, realizing it didn't matter which side had the longest list. What mattered was the significance of what was written on each side. You probably can tell what I was attempting to do, and I'm always careful, right? In coaching, you never have an agenda. But this notion of laying out for them, perhaps one part of the list would appeal more to the head, one part of the list would appeal more to the heart. And of course, it was this mattering of what was significant for them on one side or the other. It got them to kind of maybe consider circling the deal breakers. This is part of the exercise. I'd get them to circle the deal breakers, the things they refuse to compromise on. And this is when they got honest with themselves, acknowledged and accepted what their needs were. It was a brutal kind of honesty. It's what helped them to kind of get to the heart. It's important to pay attention to logic, to see the reality of a situation, though that reality can actually change in an instance. We've seen that, and there's many examples of it in our world. It's equally vital to listen with our hearts. Our hearts carry old wisdom that whispers to us. If we can quiet our minds a little, it's when we can actually hear our hearts. It's important that we let our minds speak. We let our minds say its piece and then go quiet. Allow ourselves to sit and rest a bit and then go inside. Your heart may sometimes agree with most of what your busy mind is churning out, but it also allows you to see alternative opportunities. It allows you to feel alternative possibilities, possibilities you may normally be too afraid or rigid to embrace. Our hearts gently nudge us, reminding us who we are. And of course, for folks that aren't used to allowing the heart to nudge, this can feel slightly uncomfortable. And as the saying goes, and it's not in an egoic way, but love always wins, right? It always wins. I've been blessed with having some amazing, logical, down-to-earth teachers in my life. Most of them happen to be women who have taught me the importance of rationally thinking through details. It wasn't always easy. They taught me as well the necessity of not overriding my heart. And I think because I chose so many of them with the divine feminine and a lot of them that had the divine masculine, what I lean more towards, particularly as a queer man in this lifetime, is finding that balance, that real balance of peace. It actually couldn't come without both. Some reference and deference to mind or reference and deference to heart. That combination for me was really, really important. When I struggled with choices, the counsel from many of these teachers would suggest this. They'd get me to ask this question: what's the worst thing that could happen? At times I'd mumbled the worst thing, which usually wasn't so bad, and I'd hear in reply, what would happen if that happened? This helped me bridge my mind and heart, allowing me to safely navigate possibilities without actually feeling overwhelmed. And of course, I've learned to add the following question. And this is the other side. And this would come from the divine part of me, the heart part of me. What's the best thing that could happen? And of course, from time to time, that can be equally as scary to answer. Right? Feeling at times that I wasn't ready for the good stuff, or that I even felt that I deserved the good stuff. We can often make choices based on fear. We're afraid of failure, afraid of being wrong, afraid of our dreams, our wants and our wishes that won't come true. We're afraid of broken hearts and broken relationships. there's not much, and I'm sure you'll agree with this, there's not much we can actually control, truly control in this life, though. And when a whirlwind strikes, and that might be death, that might be illness, it might be a relationship change, you can realize that the carefully constructed lives we built can be whisked away quickly, leaving us standing bare and raw. And when we look to our sides as we kneel in rubble, we see what matters. Those standing next to us who love us the most, who see us for who we truly are, who accept us as is. And of course, we're the one on our knees in the rubble, and we get to see that the part of us that shows our heart, the part of us that made a decision with our heads, is also sitting in the rubble, acknowledging that we have done the best that we possibly can. And of course, all of this kicks up this notion, and it's important for me to mention this, it all takes faith. Trust to believe if we don't have all the answers, or if the answer appears in an unruly looking package, that we're actually still going to be okay. When the what's best for you right now is different from the way you wish things were, that's hard. We need to look for the truth behind the situation when our heart and mind aren't connecting, when we can see both sides of the coin, see how they match up, but feel confused as to what to do. Because either way, it's going to be hard or it's going to be good. We have to peel away each layer of our feelings until we get to the core of how we truly feel and what we really desire and need. There. The truth lies there. And then our hearts can be opened and can accept what is best right now. When I feel a sense of calm, I've hit truth. It's in that protective space I know that even if a decision may hurt, it will quickly heal because I'm standing in my integrity. I'm being honest. It usually means that I've made that choice by listening to my intuition, to my heart. Hard choices, of course, bring reflection, opportunities for us to look inward and see if we're on the path we want to be. The path that we need to be on, it might be aligned with who we really are. And most times when I've come from the place of listening to and making a choice from my heart, that path that I'm on is actually aligned with who I really am. I have a great deal of respect and admiration, in fact, deep love and compassion even, for those who try listening within, sliding fear aside, nudging fear aside, sometimes shoving fear aside, and decide what is best now. When folks do this, they're changing course one step at a time, accepting they don't know what it looks like at the end of the road. That's brave. That's really courageous. That's really vulnerable. So no, merging logic and the heart, right? It's not for the faint of heart. It's reserved for the strong ones, the beautifully wide-shouldered, vulnerable ones. We function very differently when we are centered in our hearts. And we function very differently when we allow our heart and head to become aligned, when we're able to tap into and follow the wisdom of our heart. We're actually able to make conscious choices that actually make us feel good. We actually feel good in our bodies, and there's a match to our purpose. This practice of listening to and feeling within the heart, allowing its wisdom to inform the head, I call that heart-centeredness. And here's a few benefits of combining the two, or being heart-centered. And because remember, it comes from connecting the two. Centeredness, heart-centeredness comes from connecting head and heart. The benefits are these. The first one would be clarity. When we slow down enough to listen to our hearts, it allows greater clarity to come through. When we're caught up in our, let me own it, I call it my monkey mind of a million thoughts about past, present, and future, things can actually get really muddy. Silencing the noise in the head and listening to the wisdom of the heart actually leads to a really wise and clear mind. The second benefit of heart-centeredness is compassion. When we feel into our hearts, it is much easier to recognize and care about others. We become more thoughtful and aware of the feelings and experiences of others, more understanding, more forgiving, more at peace, and our actions really reflect this attitude of compassion. All right, let me talk about connection. When we connect with our hearts, we can feel deeper connection to our own experience. That goes without saying, but also to our feelings and emotions, as well as to the recognition of the deeper connection we actually share with other folks in our lives. In fact, with all beings. I call it the heartbeat of the universe. Alignment is another benefit of heart-centeredness. When we center ourselves in our heart, we become aligned with what really matters most to us. When we forget or don't remember to check in with our heart and start following impulses rooted in fear, usually our mind, doubt, or some egoic thinking, we start to get out of balance and we begin to feel uncertain, strained, and even lost. And finally, wisdom, probably the biggest benefit of heart-centeredness. Well, the head is usually very busy and often overwhelmed processing thousands of thoughts, sensory input and information. The heart is much quieter, observing without the burden of excess noise. The heart dwells in the most subtle realms of feeling and intuition. It experiences everything that you and your brain do, but the information it receives is direct and clear from the deep source within you. From this inner knowing comes great wisdom of understanding of the truth of your experience and certainly your nature. When we look into our hearts, we're actually able to access that deep wisdom and use it to inform our minds with crucial information that actually it doesn't necessarily receive from the outside world. So the heart is sourcing from within, not from without. It's easy to allow the heart to take a backseat because most of us spend the majority of our lives leading with our heads or our brains, preoccupied with the immense amount of stimulus coming from the outside world. And that stimulus, and I'm not judging, it's both good and bad. So there's no right or wrong. There's no better or worse. Our work is we must actively remember to check in and connect with the heart. We need our heart's wisdom to guide us through all of this outside stimulus. So remind yourself daily, hourly, from moment to moment, you can ask yourself, what is my heart telling me? What is my heart wanting me to do? Inviting you to become best friends. Because if anyone has your best interest in mind, this kind of sounds silly, if anyone has your best interest in mind, it's your heart. Thank you for sharing some head-to-heart time with me today. I appreciate you.